Welcome, folks. This is the Political Goat, and I'm your host, Uncle Felix. And with me today, I got a very familiar face, Chris, the tax guy, or today he's known calling himself what's that? The
The
bank guy.
anti-Panglossian.
Close enough. Close enough. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Uncle Felix?
Not bad. How's Arizona holding up?
It's doing. We've actually got a little rain, man. First rain we've had in a long time, so it's actually kind of refreshing to feel rain again.
Yeah. Question for you: have you heard any I don't want to say like buyer's remorse? You know how obviously Biden won that state. Does anybody any talk about like how or why?
No, I mean, honestly, I hate to say it, but most of the people I talk to would not support Biden,
Hmm.
at least with those that are in the state. And the other ones, there may be buyer's remorse when they start seeing some of the stuff he rolls out, but right now it's still kind of too soon to get a real feel for it.
Hmm.
But again, these are people that like just were disgusted by Trump,
Hmm.
and I think we're disgusted enough to look beyond his accomplishments in office and just look to the person that was doing the work. And I think they just, and I think we'll see when the economy turns around what happens to that, what starts to happen to the stock market. I think, as people see what the difference is,
Hmm.
it may shed a little bit more light, but I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't deny he's definitely a polarizing figure. You know what I mean? So, uh, obviously, a lot of people were driven to support him. He got almost 75 million votes. I'm not buying that Biden received 80 million, but he received a lot of votes anyway. You know what I mean? Because of the polarization that from Trump, and a lot of that I think was media driven as well. But that's a whole nother subject for a whole nother show.
Well, one of these days we'll have to prove your theory, and we'll just start reading off presidential tweets, and you can tell me if that sounds like a person that you want to support, regardless of his accomplishments, and then we'll have that conversation.
Yeah, that's the thing. For me, I'm more about what he's done than versus the nonsense on the Twitter and stuff like that. I'm willing to look past a lot of those things for results, and he delivered a lot of good promises.
And that's why I supported him. That's
What
why
I mean?
I supported him too. I looked
Yeah.
at his list of accomplishments and I said, look, I may not like him, but I like the job he's doing, and I'm going to vote for him because I want that job done. Even though I don't really care for the man, I like the job.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as, there were times where it was really hard to support that dude.
Yeah, I didn't think they were that bad. You know what I mean? Like to the point where I would like disavow the guy or say I'm not going to support the guy. But I've spoken to a lot of people who I don't know. I guess I have thicker skin than some because I've spoken to people. It's like, oh, did you see this tweet? Did you see that tweet? So me, I'm thinking rationally. I'm like, so okay, you're gonna dump that guy who's proven, he's been handling everything, pretty well, and then you're gonna dump him for, somebody else who's proven that they're awful and their policies are awful, just because he's gonna, you don't have to deal with tweets. Like to me, that's doesn't make it seems petty.
To me, it was if he was going to be the liar that everyone made him out to be,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just be semi-misinformed and kind of a boisterous turd. If people had literally made, if he was truly the liar he was made out to be, he would have been much more polished in what he was saying.
Yeah.
I think if he was going to be that fake, where he was lying about everything, he would do it with a straight face and a calm demeanor and present in a normal fashion. I think the fact that he was kind of crazy in some aspects, talked way out of left field half the time, came up with ridiculous analogies. I mean, that screams to me that you know what you're getting. You're getting results, A, because we had 4 years of proven results, and then you're getting a guy that you know isn't the most polished guy, and I would say the opposite of whatever polished would be.
Hmm.
So a completely rough around the edges type of guy. But you knew what you were getting.
Hmm.
Whereas with Biden, I think you kind of know what
Well,
you're getting, but he's polished. And as a result, he's really good at telling you one thing or doing something else.
yeah, and I think unfortunately that's what we're gonna get. I mean, obviously Biden's already talking about reversing a lot of policies. You know, he wants to raise the taxes. I'm not sure if he's. I know he's definitely not going to continue building the wall, but there's talks of him tearing down the wall, which is which is insanity. You know, and then we got this whole caravan issue of migrants coming up from they're right now. I think they're in Guatemala, making their way to Mexico. You know, obviously their destination here is here to the U.S., so it's gonna be interesting to see how he handles that. But again, I'm going way off topic. The things I did want to talk about today, I want to talk about uh, January 6th and the timeline that was presented actually by the New York Post and the I'm sorry New York Times and the Washington Post. Which totally dispels this whole thing of that Trump incited the riots, because the timeline goes totally against that, and it tells a different story. Then I want to talk about um, this whole like Ronald Reagan warned us that if fascism was to come to America, it would come via liberalism, and I believe it's here now, and we're gonna discuss a few different examples on that. And then also I want to talk about the inauguration tomorrow. You know what I mean? New president number 46 will be ushered in tomorrow. And then of course we're going to get into some NFL. Um, but first, like I said, let me pop up that timeline, and here it is here. Um, Trump gave a speech obviously on January 6th at a rally there. I think it was a take back your country rally. And that speech was given at 12 o'clock. Now, if you're familiar with how Washington is laid out, um, it's a 45-minute walk. Uh, did I you do the spear? Hold on.
I'm
All right,
back.
you're back now.
Do I got to stutter again?
All right. So my bad. Let's go back and re-bring that up. So here's the timeline. He gave the speech at 12 p.m. And if you're familiar with the layout of Washington, from where he gave that speech, it's a 45-minute walk to the Capitol building. And um, so violence actually started occurring at the Capitol building at 12:45. So if you, which means you wouldn't have heard any of Trump's speech, because you would have to leave immediately to get there at 12:45. At 1:09, um, the Capitol was being overran, and then at 1:11, Trump's speech ends. So it's kind of tough to say he incited the riot when the the damage was being done during his speech, and where the Democrats seem to point, um, where he incited is at the end of the speech, where he said to be patriotic, and he said to be peaceful and patriotic as they march onto the Capitol building. I'm not sure how that gets confused into to be violent, but that's the case they made. They rushed the case of impeachment because now as more evidence comes out, again with this timeline here that we're seeing, that goes against what they're saying. What also goes against what they're saying is the FBI is getting information that a lot of these people came down with plans of already attacking the building. I mean, they found weapons, they found zip ties in people's cars, they found notes. There's all sorts of things that suggest that the people that attacked the building had it pre-planned. So if something is pre-planned, there's no way it could have been incited by the speech. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Again, and I think we talked about this offline.
Mm-hmm.
What the Democrats are probably going to say, and or at least people that support the impeachment, they're going to come back and say, look, his rhetoric over the last, several months from the time of the election is what fueled this fueled this divide, and in this, some of the other speeches, either by Giuliani, all of which are under that kind of Trump canopy. led the groundwork to, what ended up happening the day of his other speech. And while that speech may not have been the absolute catalyst, the other speeches all taken together is what caused the
Oh,
protest to
I'm
go
sure that's what
violent.
they're gonna say, but that would be moving the goalpost, so to speak, because the argument is that it was this speech here that incited the violence, and no, now obviously as the evidence comes out, they're gonna switch their story, so it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. As a matter of fact, it's a big question mark, even if they even have jurisdiction to go on with the impeachment, because obviously after tomorrow, 12 p.m., he is no longer president. And I know there was some constitutional scholars out there like Hurley and I can't think of the other guy named Dershowitz, who came out and said that uh, is that the dog he's barking?
Yeah, my wife just got home.
Who came out and said that the Senate Congress doesn't have the jurisdiction to um, go after the president because he's no longer sitting in office. And it's been made pretty clear, I guess, the reason they really want to do this is that they're looking to make sure that Trump will not be eligible to run again. So we'll see what happens there. Um, but the other thing I wanted to talk about is, again, we touched on it a little bit of how Ronald Reagan had said that if fascism is to come to America, that it would come via liberalism, and I believe here we are. It's been ushered in, unfortunately, um, and you can see. I'm going to go over a few different examples about it. One that made me chuckle and laugh was Alexandria Cortez, who came out and she's demanding the resignation of Senators Ted Cruz and Hawley. And the reason she's doing that is because she's saying because the they supported Trump's battle against the Electoral College. Um, Obviously, I mean, AOC is a congresswoman. This is not how it works. You can't just simply demand that a senator steps down. Um,
Yeah.
but it shows her mentality and her support of, of fascism. I would say. I mean, we're treading some very dangerous waters here because it seems like we're seeing more and more. We're obviously seeing it in social media where if you're a dissenting voice against the liberal narrative right now, they're seeking to not only silence you but to destroy you completely. um, we've seen Twitter kick Trump and I believe 80,000 accounts they shut down on not just Trump's 80 other thousand accounts they shut down from Twitter and silenced their voices from that platform. Um, and
It reminds me of, again, going back now only a couple of years, we were talking about the Me Too movement.
mhm,
And we talked about how that uh, someone would be accused, and before it ever went further than an accusation,
mhm,
that person would lose all their contracts. They would be dragged through the mud. They would losing their jobs. And I think what we're seeing now is that, whereas at least then, if guilty, you know what, destroy them by all means. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that kind of scum around. Like, hey, we all agree with that. The only thing I think most of us would want to see is actual evidence
Mhm,
first. At least a level-headed person would want to say, hey, before we destroy this person's life, maybe we should, I don't know, get our facts straight. But beyond that, now we're seeing like where people just have a different ideological belief or a different, mentality towards things, and they're also trying to be destroyed and ruined. And I think you see that with like I think I was telling you earlier about Gina Carano from The Mandalorian
mhm.
and the backlash that she's getting on social media because they're trying to get Disney to cancel her contract because she was a Trump supporter and because she's liked a few photos. And they're literally calling for this woman, a successful woman, to be destroyed in her career over her beliefs. And that's not America. Like that's the opposite of freedom of speech. It works both ways. We may not like what the liberal
True freedom of speech only works if you're willing to speak up for the voices that you don't agree with. Because
Mm,
if you're only going to stand up and fight for people who agree with you, then that's not freedom of speech.
mm. But it goes along also with this notion of, facts don't matter as long as it supports the narrative. And I think that goes back to what you were saying about Trump's timeline and the impeachment. And you said, well, that's gonna them, now it's gonna have to backtrack, or they're moving the goalposts. Well, of course they're gonna move the goalposts. Again, facts don't matter anymore. What matters is they don't like it, and it doesn't contort to their own system of beliefs and what they think is their righteous cause. And it's, again, they're very. It is the worst situation of absolute polar hypocrisy that I've ever seen. I don't even know if that's a term, but I'm going to go with it. But it's, if you do the same things that, for example, a lot of people I know, they hate to hear this comparison about the Capitol protests and like the Seattle protests or the Portland protests or any of those other the protests going on in some cases for months on end. But wrong is wrong. The same way that I thought that the violent aspects of the protests during those marches was wrong, I'm going to also condemn what happened at the Capitol, because the moment you crossed that line and then entered the building, you were in the wrong. Now the rest of the protesters, they were probably fine. I have no issue with that. They're just exercising their constitutional right. But the moment you cross that line and you turn into a violent protest, well, that's no longer protected under the Constitution. But I'm willing to call it out on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, you read through the main media, and they're calling it everything but a protest. They're calling it insurrection,
Mm-hmm.
sedition, a hostile takeover of the Capitol. Look, if your version of a hostile takeover is a guy wearing horns that looks like a throwout from an extra from the set of Vikings, that's not horns may be a weapon, but it's certainly not a weapon. Horns of mass destruction. They are not. You know what I mean? Like we need to kind of take a step back and realize half the people a majority of them were not armed.
Mm-hmm.
If they had any type of ammo or weapon, they had a pole that was a flag. Yeah, some had zip ties. One guy said that he was taking a photo. He had zip ties. He said, "No, I picked them up when they were there." We don't know if that's true or not. According to the FBI, there's a strong possibility that he was right. So there's so much being talked about how they were trying to take kidnappers. Really, where did you get that from?
Yeah, I mean,
Literally, there's a guy taking a pose sitting behind Pelosi's desk.
mm-hmm.
He wasn't even leaving an upper decker. I mean, this is a guy that literally just sat down and posed behind her desk. Half the protesters were standing behind the velvet ropes and looking at it as a free day in the park. This isn't an armed insurrection. This isn't a hostile takeover. It was a protest gone insanely bad. But beyond that, that's it.
Yeah, and what it is, it fits their narrative. It fits what they're trying to paint Trump and Trump supporters as, and that's this is the same media that was just stayed completely silent, over the summer when all the
Mm,
crazy stuff that was going on. You know what I mean? We saw a federal building get attacked, um, and nobody batted an eye. Matter of fact, they accused Trump of being a dictator because he wanted to send the National Guard there to protect the federal court building. We kept hearing how everything was mostly peaceful,
mm,
and they've totally changed their tune now. Now everybody's out for blood, including AOC. Like I said, the picture that I showed, and now more recently, the CEO of My Pillows, he's come out and said that Bed Bath and Beyond, Kohl's, Wayfair, they've all dropped his product because he supports the president. Again, and it goes to what you were speaking of. It's not good enough to, hey, let's just boycott it. They want to just destroy the person, and they're trying to shame all Trump supporters too. Um, I don't know if you saw, AOC was actually talking about re-educating Trump supporters. Which is which is this. I mean, we're getting into some scary talk here.
Yeah.
All this just because you're a dissenting voice. It's insanity.
Yeah. Well, I question what is next? An approved movie watch list? Um, are they going to start burning books outside of school? Are they
Well,
like because
speaking
they've
of burning,
tried that before?
books, now they're also pushing for all these publishers not to publish any Trump memoirs because obviously he's coming out of office. It's pretty commonplace for the president to write his memoirs, and um, the media, these politicians, the Washington elite, basically, that they're making it known that they don't want any of these publishers to help Trump with that. Unfortunately for them, Trump is a self-made billionaire, so I'm pretty sure he's not going to have a problem putting out his book. But
Yeah.
they will try to stop it, I'm sure.
He'll teach it at Trump University. Too soon?
what
Too soon, Felix?
that what a hack job that thing was. One of the things because early on I was a cruise guy when in 2016, and that Trump University thing that's a stain on Trump, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, well, it isn't. He has a lot of stain. He's had a lot of business failures. He's had a lot of mess ups. I mean, listen, he's clearly been done all right for himself,
Hmm.
but it's still. I mean, he's had a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
mess.
but obviously the successes outweigh the failures because he
Oh,
wouldn't be
clearly,
where he
yeah,
is now. And I try to explain that to a lot of people because a lot of people like to highlight his failures. You know what I mean? I'm like, the guy's a billionaire with a B. It's not, you know what I mean? If he's a
Mhm.
failure, sign me up. I want to be a failure.
Yeah. Can I be affiliate too?
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll take the
affiliate with a $4.5 billion portfolio. Can I be that kind
yeah,
of affiliate, please?
and the supermodel wife. You know what I mean? And oh, by the way,
Yeah,
they're sleeping at the White House tonight. They're last night, by the way.
yeah, yeah. Well, they're flying out. I guess he's going to fly out before the inauguration. So
Yeah, yeah.
as
So
the last like fu snub. So
yeah, I heard he's got the red carpet coming out and everything. He's
yeah,
got the whole nine going. He's gonna go out his way. That's for sure.
yeah. It's no surprise there. Look, he honestly believes he was robbed, right,
One of
wrong,
the
or
reasons
otherwise.
I wanted to bring you on was actually to speak about obviously Biden's gonna be the new president. He's already starting to talk about his new policies he wants to roll out, and one of them he wants to roll out. He actually tweeted. Speaking of bad tweets, here you go. It's long past time. This is a tweet from Joe Biden. It's long past time to raise the minimum wage so hardworking people earn at least $15 an hour. I hope that the Democratic control at the House and Senate will ensure prompt action to get it done. Um, Now, there's about a million things wrong, in my opinion, with the mandatory minimum wage. Now, I
Hmm.
understand he only has the power to do it at the federal level, obviously, but he's actually trying to push this. He wants to see it go nationwide, and the states adapt it, so he's trying to put pressure on them to do so. Um, and like I said, there's a million reasons why I can talk about why it's a bad thing, but you're the expert here. What do you think?
Well, I think when you're paying $12 for a Happy Meal, I don't want to hear prediction, and that's really what it comes down to. Look, minimum wage jobs, and I'm not going to blanket it that way. I think there are definitely tiers. I think there are some situations where people are probably underpaid because of corporate greed. I don't think that that's again, shareholder wealth aside. I think there are certain industries that could definitely afford to pay their lower tier wages a little higher. Um, I think to some extent that's why a lot of companies have gone away from unskilled or I don't want to say unskilled necessarily, but that is what it is, unskilled labor the board
Oh
from like
yeah, and
bargaining.
one
But
of the
we're
things.
talking about minimum wage, like your McDonald's worker or someone who works at Dunkin' Donuts. Look, these are jobs that weren't supposed to be your career path, and if they are, hopefully you do a really good job so that you get into the management of those companies pretty quickly.
Mhm.
They weren't supposed to be the job that was going to be your end all be all and live the
No,
American dream.
no, and people get upset when I say it, but but it's true. If you're working a minimum wage job and you're trying to raise or support your family on that minimum wage job, somewhere along the line you screwed up. because again, like you're saying, that's not where um, you're supposed to be at that time of your life. That's where you're supposed to be. Hopefully a teenager, a young person getting into the workplace. Building up the skills to be
Through
more
college,
independent.
even if you decided to go that route.
Yes, yes. My wife's first job was at Dunkin' Donuts. She worked at McDonald's. You know what I mean?
I
Um,
started in fast food. I have no
no,
complaints about it. I mean,
there's no complaint. There's no complaints about it. There's nothing shameful about it. It's a job.
no,
It's a way to earn money. But it shouldn't be the way you want to earn money while raising a family. You know what I mean?
no, not
There's
at all. And I'm not even going to say that $15 an hour is going to provide for an
oh
amazing
no,
quality of life. It
no,
really isn't.
no.
But
But my whole thing is like how obviously like I said, there's about a million ways you can go with this to point out why it's wrong. $15 an hour in New York City, for example, is a lot different than $15 an hour in Mississippi. You know what I mean? So you can't just have a blanket number. And also, how you're a CPA. How can you dictate to a business what they can afford to pay their employees without even looking at their books? You know what I mean? Like you just can't sit there and say, "Oh, you got to pay $15 an hour because we say so." It
here's
just doesn't work.
does he really think that now is the appropriate time to have this conversation? So here we are with COVID, right? We still haven't fully opened the economy yet.
Mhm.
We've got small business owners, restaurateurs, et cetera, that are still struggling because they're not getting the seating capacity that they're normally accustomed to. Tourism industry, I mean, almost any of the hospitality, entertainment venue, all of these companies, a lot of which would have employees making minimum wage, are already struggling just to keep the doors open and keep themselves afloat. And then you're gonna now say, hey, all those people that you were nice enough to keep on the payroll, even though you were really, really struggling this year, now you have to pay them even more.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not just $15 an hour. I love it when they talk about $15 an hour as the wage, but that's not the cost. So payroll taxes that are borne by the employer
Yep.
are 7.62% on top of the wages that you're paying. So
Hmm.
if you're going to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour, you're also raising that incremental amount by another almost near 10%, all things considered equal, especially when you factor in some state taxes, et cetera. So the payroll taxes adds an additional tax on top of this additional minimum wage.
Hmm.
Again, I will tell you, Arizona has a $12 minimum wage. I thought that was pretty high when I got here.
Hmm.
And as a result, I can tell you, when you go to the store and you want to get like a burger or whatever in McDonald's, literally, me and the wife went to McDonald's. It would cost us over $25.
Yes, that's some fine dining there.
You know what I mean? Like I was like, oh my god, I don't want to say this. I miss Rhode Island. You know what I mean? Like, but to me, that price differential, when you look at the two regions, our cost of living is actually lower here, but
Hmm.
our minimum wage is higher. So things like minimum wage based in businesses, the prices are going up.
Hmm.
And anyone who tells me that, oh, that doesn't affect price, it affects price. When you have rich people, wealthy people, whatever the case, decision makers that are used to accustomed to making X,
Hmm.
and you put a burden on them, taxes, minimum wage demands, whatever it may be, don't think for a half second that they're going to just take that lying down, because they're going to take it out of their pocket and say, yeah, you know what? You're right. Maybe we should give it back. No, they're going to cut their wages. They're going to make you work harder. They're going to expect more out of you for every hour that you put into the office.
Hmm.
They're going to replace half of your staff with machines if they can to automate the process to make your job nullified. And
Yep.
then they're going to raise the prices afterwards. So don't
And
think that this is going to be a win-win. And on top of the fact that now you have this $15 an hour, but now the buying power of that $15 an hour is the same as what you had when you had $12 an hour.
exactly,
Because
exactly.
now everything you would normally be buying at the store costs you more because the companies have to pay more,
Hmm.
and that adjusts price. So you're never going to get ahead if the only thing you're relying on is minimum wage. What you need to do is take an investment in yourself. And I'm not saying go to college. College isn't for everybody. I'm saying pick a trade, pick a profession, and understand that this is what I want to do, and this is the money that it's going to afford me. based on the life I want to lead, and kind of do a budget. This is the stuff that should be taught in high school.
Hmm.
Make a home budget. I want to do this. I want to have a kid. Oh, let me put that in my 5 year plan. Like budget out how much money you need to live the lifestyle you want, and then back into how much you need to make in order to get you. But this is where it really hurts, is
Yeah.
that because again, if you're waiting for the government to solve your situation, you're so far behind the eight ball, you ain't catching up.
No, and that's the problem. I don't understand why people are so quick to want government involved in every little aspect of life. You know what I mean? And again, we can sit here and talk for hours and hours about the whole minimum wage thing. To me, I feel you discriminate against people, low skilled uh, employees, because if I was willing to pay you $10 an hour, and all of a sudden now I got to pay you 15. Guess what? I'm not going to hire you now because you're just not worth it. Um, so it actually discriminates against the people you're actually trying to help, which is the low skilled worker. And you mentioned obviously with the restaurants, they're struggling right now because this whole COVID thing. I mean, this is like a knockout blow, because normally, if you're a waitress at a restaurant, you'd actually get paid, low wage, because you're banking on tips and stuff. Now you're telling that employee, I got to pay you a high wage and you're gonna get the tips. So something there is
And,
not gonna jive too. It,
and the
it's
other thing
it's
is,
it's
you have jobs right now out there in the world, whether they be, and again, I pardon the ignorance, I don't know exactly what all these people's wages are,
Mhm.
but like, you may have like a classroom attendant, like someone who's like a teacher's assistant in a classroom. I don't know what they make. I'm assuming probably around 20 bucks an hour, give or take, right? Then you have some other folks that are, but again, these are things that you have to get trained, you have to get qualified for, you have to go through a background check. You may have someone that's a professional secretary or administrative assistant, someone who actually had to take some tech courses and some trade schooling to
Mhm.
get to a point where they can make this money. And now you're going to pay the person who has no training whatsoever, only a couple dollars less.
Yeah.
Now you're going to look at the people and say, well, shit, if I can make that kind of money just being a clerk at the local 7-Eleven, see ya.
No, exactly.
You
I
know,
mean,
you're giving
it's
people too much of an option to not invest in themselves. The
Mhm.
whole point of capitalism, the whole point of society where you can actually have a free and moving economy is that you make an investment in yourself, and that investment has the return in the form of a higher wage.
Mhm.
So anyone that says you can't get ahead in America is an idiot. Of course you get
Yeah.
ahead in America.
Mhm.
You got to do it smart, but you got to do it. You got to
But
actually invest in yourself.
you keep pushing policies like this, then it's going to make it harder on people to get ahead. That's for sure.
And
Um,
are you kidding me? Someone's going to tell them on my social media page that I need to be fired and lose my occupation because I'm saying something that goes against the grain.
it's it's insanity. Um, hold on one second.
Don't you have a commercial we have to go to?
Yes, we do. Give me 1 second.
You gotta make these advertisers some money, man.
Yeah.
You got to pay that extra minimum wage now.
All right. Well, this thing has been a huge mess today. But all right, here we go. Bear with me. We'll be right back right after this. And we're back. And actually, before we get into the NFL, there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on. Did you get to see the president's speech today?
No, I did not. I
Yeah,
actually had to work.
he gave his farewell speech today. I believe sometime around like 4:30. It was nice, but he's talking about how the best is yet to come. So so we will see what he's got planned. Um, Obviously, he talked about the transition tomorrow and leaving tomorrow, in the morning. But he also made it pretty clear that he's not just going away. He's gonna be around. So it's gonna be very interesting to see what Trump has in store for us. That's for sure. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Biden. He named his the assistant health the assistant health secretary today, um, and it's supposed to be a historical uh, appointment because she will be the first transgender female appointed to this position. Um, and that's all fine and good. I could care less what people do in their own privacy. But this is also, and her name is actually Rachel Levine. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because she is the same lady who used her position, her influence to remove her mother from a nursing home. Um, Sometime last year, right before they pumped those nursing homes filled with COVID infected patients.
Hmm.
So that's a big stain on her. But I guess she's a transgender, so that fits the whole identity politics things, and then they have her in. And then it's always funny to me. Liberals love to say follow the science, believe the science, this and that. Unless there's chromosomes involved, then they tell you screw the science. Like I don't get it. So we're supposed to play along and believe that this is a woman here. But I just thought that was ironic, and it was funny. I had put up a video about this on TikTok a few hours ago, and it was getting a lot of hits. I put it up. It was up for like 4 hours. It had gotten over 10,000 views, and then all of a sudden, TikTok took it down. They labeled it as hate speech, and
Well,
all I was saying was the whole, exactly what I just said is pretty much what I said on that
yeah,
video.
and again, I think it goes against the narrative that is being produced out there.
Hmm.
And again, here's the thing. I'm with you. I don't really care if someone
No.
is gender. If they wanted me to refer to them as a female, a pronoun, they want to change their name. You know what? That's on you. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I don't care. I
Hmm.
mean, it's not.
Yeah,
Everyone, they can do whatever they
I
want.
say it
And
as well. If Rachel Levine was in front of me, I would refer to her as a she because I would respect her.
absolutely, because that's
I would respect her wishes, but don't ask me to suspend my reality. You know what I mean? Which is, I understand. There's two genders in this world, and so don't. But so don't ask me to go against science, basically, in biology, because
yeah.
it's just not true.
I,
You can dress up as much as a woman as you'd like, and by all means, go ahead, have fun. You can dress up as a man as much as you'd like, but unless you are biologically a man or biologically a woman, then you're not. I mean, it's just that simple. Like I always say, I could come out here and say I'm a fire truck today, but doesn't mean I'm a fire truck. You know what I mean? But
wait, wait a minute. You're not a fire truck?
no, not today, not today.
Oh, okay, so that
Not
was
today.
last week. I thought I
Not
missed that.
not the fun is that. But you know what? I'm gonna get off that subject before I get in trouble
Yeah,
here.
you're going to be pulled down from the platform. I'm waiting for it.
Since
You're done. I'm
since
just saying.
TikTok labeled it hate
Thanks for
speech.
showing you. This was the last time this will ever be aired. I understand, but I'm glad I was part of the last show.
So with that, we're gonna transition into football, and
But wait,
it was a crazy weekend, and I loved it. I had fun watching. There was a lot of good football. Unfortunately, my Steelers were not involved at all.
can I tell you though, the best part of Wild Card Weekend?
Hmm.
We're watching Ben Roethlisberger's tears. Oh, I got so much joy from that. It really it hit me right here. So much so that next day I ordered a Pittsburgher from the local burger joint,
Yep.
which is made after like the famous burgers that they sell at the stadium, the fries and the coleslaw.
Yep.
Ordered one, and I so badly wanted to order one with a side of Roethlisberger's tears.
Oh.
Instead, I just remembered them as I ate the burger, me inside.
That's awful. That's awful. But the best memes were the ones of him sitting on the bench. They took that from the Narco series on Netflix. Those were hilarious. I don't know if you saw them, but
I didn't, but again, just watching him tear up, I'm like, I felt bad for him a little bit, but it was really hard to feel bad.
listen, it's hard to feel bad for any millionaire out there playing a kids game. But, you feel bad, but then you get over it real quick. But
Can,
good.
I was gonna say I want to just mention something real quick, and I know we're short for time on the subject of football. I also want to give a nice little shout out to the Bills fans.
Mm-hmm.
So I read an article and I followed up, and it actually cited in a few sources
Yep.
that Bills fans in celebration went viral apparently on Lamar Jackson's like childhood charity.
Yep.
And in celebration and out of respect for Lamar and his injury,
Mm-hmm.
actually started donating to his childhood charity. And I think that is a class act.
Hey, that's why the Bills Mafia were voted the number one fans in the nation by the NFL.
I, I was I literally I read that article and I said, you know what? That's class. I really, really respected that. And I thought in today's day and age, that is the shit we need to see more of.
Mm. Yep. Well, here we go. Here's the playoff picture getting closer and closer to the Super Bowl. We're down to the final four, folks. And it should be very interesting. And in that final four, we're going to see, hopefully, we're going to see the two young guns go at it because it's not a given that Mahomes is going to be available for this game because he left the game on the concussion protocol. Um, and he, from what I heard, he did pass the first step, but he's still under the concussion protocol. So he still has a couple of steps to pass before they deem him eligible for the game on Sunday. And that's going to mean the world, obviously, to the Chiefs because Mahomes is by far, in a way, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the league. And you can't go into the AFC Championship without your best weapon. So that being said, I'm gonna hold off on that game to see who I pick because obviously if Mahomes is playing, I'm picking the Chiefs there.
I gotta tell you, even with Mahomes,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not confident that the Bills aren't going to take on. I will tell you, watching their games throughout the season,
Mm-hmm.
they're all playing with a vigor and an energy and a
Well,
hunger
you know what?
that is.
They actually surprised me because I picked against them against the Ravens. I thought they weren't going to be able to stop the Ravens running game, but they did. You know what I mean? And I mean they bottled up Lamar Jackson. They knocked him out of the game. You know what I mean? As you said earlier, and he had to face his own concussion. But I don't know. I see too much firepower with with the Chiefs. And you know what? I gotta say, kudos to Andy Reid. I don't know if you watched that Chiefs game at the end there. He could have easily bottled up and gone into a shell when Mahomes got was exited from the game. They had Chad Henne come in and they made some real ballsy calls. You know what I mean? They went for it on 4th and 1. They threw the ball on 3rd down. Everybody, everybody was shocked, and obviously even the Bills' defense was shocked because it worked and it went through. So the MVP of that game was actually the play call. He did a great job there. And then that brings us to the NFC. We got the battle of the legends here. GOAT versus GOAT. I mean, Tom Brady's
Okay, there's only one goat.
listen, Tom Brady's in the class all by himself. That doesn't take away anything from Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers got a lot of talent. He's going to be one of the all-time greats.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one goat. And I'm sorry, that's not Aaron Rodgers. That said, it's
No,
going to be a great game.
no.
It's going to be a great game.
It will be a great game. And see, my brain tells me to pick the Packers because the Packers are so balanced. They were balanced again this week here when they played the Rams. They threw for almost 300 yards. They ran for about 170 plus. 2 touchdowns on the ground, 2 touchdowns in the air, and they've been consistent all year round. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has 40 plus touchdowns, I think, to only 4 picks all season. He doesn't make mistakes. So my head is saying go with the Packers. But but my heart is saying is how in the world do you bet against Tom Brady in this situation? You can't, and that's the logic I used last week because honestly, the Saints on paper should have won that game. Saints beat them convincingly twice during the regular season. You know what I mean? But I just said I think the words I used last week were you don't spit in the wind, you don't tug on Superman cape, and you don't pull on. I mean, you don't bet against Tom Brady in this situation. So
No,
I'm gonna stick with that in this situation here. I think the Bucks will pull that off.
here's what I think. Tom Brady aside, I think what I saw last week out of the Saints game is that the Bucks did a much improved job stopping the offense for the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that said, they still scored a lot of points. They still were able to score on quite a few drives. But that defense stood up at 4 turnovers against Breeze, unheard
Mm-hmm.
of. Um,
No, they got a championship caliber defense there in Tampa Bay, so it's gonna be a good one. That's the one I'm looking forward to because the other game I'm not gonna say if Mahomes is playing, Chiefs win that game.
yeah. Again, I think that if I'm going to call it out here, I'm going to say it's going to be Tampa Bay and the Bills
Mm-hmm.
in the Super Bowl, and that being the combo, I don't know who takes it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, we was
I think you're going to see Tom Brady playing against another AFC East team before the end of this year.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're gonna see Tom Brady against Mahomes in the Super Bowl, which
That could,
I
that could be
think
fun, too.
everybody wants to see.
The
And
the
I
old the old versus the new.
and if that happens, you will see Mahomes take the torch. But that being said, hey Chris, thanks for coming on. I'm
Hey
running
man,
against
our
the
pleasure.
clock here. Um, Thanks for putting up with all the technical difficulties here. But yeah, I thought we did great and we explained ourselves. But thanks again, and I will see you soon.
Always a pleasure. And remember, everybody, file your taxes on time.
Folks, that was Chris the Tax Guy. Love having him on the show. Wealth of knowledge. I hope you enjoyed the show. And with that being said, I will see you next week, and God bless.